Hey everybody, today I'm going to talk about the film Red Desert, and in particular, how Monica Vitti seduces us into watching this 1964 Italian art film from director Michelangelo Antonioni. Alright, let's get into it. The most striking thing about Red Desert is the weird, almost eerie vibe you get right out of the gate from the images of a blurry gray industrial wasteland combined with a kind of low-tech, early electronic noise. The first images are of a petroleum-fired power plant with its smoke, steam, drums of chemicals, and pools of oily sludge. There seems to be almost no color anywhere, and the entire landscape seems to be either burnt or covered in ash. It looks like a world where the machines have taken over and all signs of life have been sent packing. Our protagonist in Red Desert is Juliana, played by Monica Vitti, who turns out to be married to the manager of this power plant that we see, and who first appears accompanied by her young son. Now, Juliana's behavior is a little strange, and we soon learn that she's suffering from some kind of anxiety disorder. Though we don't know exactly what's wrong with Juliana, it's very strongly implied that the cause of her suffering is her reaction to this physical environment, this inhuman modern industrial landscape with its incessant droning noise that seems to crowd out all thought. Even their home seems inhospitable. It has a very cold and modern appearance with stark lines everywhere. It's definitely not what anyone would call homey. The main action or movement throughout this film is Juliana's psychological agony set against this backdrop of harsh industrial modernity. And since Juliana is clearly the most important character, the film almost feels like a meditation on female neurosis. But somehow all this is rendered mystifyingly beautiful, and that is the genius of Antonioni at work. The character of Juliana in Red Desert has the effect of bringing the plain truth of male sexual attraction into high relief. Juliana, though she seems like a kind enough person, she's a barely functioning, self-absorbed, neurotic wreck, and though her suffering is undoubtedly real, she's still a pain in the ass to be around for the others around her. She really doesn't have that much to offer the other characters in this film, except for the possibility of half-hearted sex in the case of the men, but this is enough to make her valuable to them. Monica Vitti's on-screen presence stirs the male imagination in a way that is unique to her. She conveys a latent sexual desire which she reluctantly reveals from behind a mask of aloofness. And placing her in front of a bleak industrial background like this makes us want her all the more. If Antonioni had swapped out Monica Vitti for any of the other women in this film, well, I probably wouldn't have made this video. But because it's Monica Vitti, I can endure 2 hours of her wandering around in a neurotic trance with pleasure. The two main male characters in the film, which are her husband and an acquaintance named Corrado, the latter played by Irish actor Richard Harris, interact with Juliana basically in the same way that most men would in real life. We're initially interested in her problems only to the extent that it might lead to sex, but if it doesn't, our interest in her problems drops to just above zero. The way Red Desert is made tells us a lot about the kind of director Antonioni was. This was Antonioni's first color film, and it was a huge artistic shift for him. He, like a lot of other film artists at that time, had considered black and white photography as central to his style. And for Antonioni, shifting to color, though he knew it was inevitable, felt like betraying an old mistress. In Red Desert, he planned out his use of color for every inch of this film in meticulous detail. Antonioni understood the potential of color, and he wanted to use it carefully and avoid turning the throttle wide open like a lot of the mainstream directors had been doing since the 1950s. He went to a huge amount of trouble to tamp down the color in Red Desert, and back then that was not easy to do. You had to either use special filters on the lens, or you had to physically change the environment. And he did both. He ran his crew ragged creating the look he wanted. He painted houses, buildings, whole expanses of trees black and gray to make them look like they were coated in smoke residue or cement dust. And sometimes the rain would wash the paint off overnight, and he'd have to either do the whole thing again or just abandon that shot for something else. It's really impressive when you realize how much work went into all this. It's tempting for us today to view Red Desert as an example of early environmentalist propaganda. But we'd be guilty of projecting the assumptions and values which are the norm today onto this film. Environmentalism wasn't really a thing in 1964, not in the way it is now, and Antonioni viewed the industrial development of Italy as a good thing for the most part. Though he certainly recognized the trade-offs associated with economic and technological progress, Red Desert is more about how society was changing due to this technological development, and how people responded to these changes, and in particular, how the new environment favored certain types of people at the expense of others. We have to remember that many parts of Italy at that time were more like the poorer parts of Latin America today. So the benefits of economic development were much more apparent to people in 1960s Italy than they would be to most of us now, where things like drinkable tap water, reliable electricity, proper sewage treatment, these things are taken for granted by most people, at least in the first world. Okay, that's it for Red Desert. Definitely check this film out and let me know what you think. I'm Rod Richards. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.